finished chapter 15 last week. With this, I'm just going to read from the verse 32 of chapter 15. Instead of me trying to rehash it, I'll just read it to you. I said 16, but then I changed my mind. I'm going to read 15:32, and then we'll get into 16. As they reached the spot at the top of the Mount of Olives where people worship God, David found Hushai the Archite waiting for him. Hushai had torn his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, "If you go with me, you'll only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I'll now be your advisor, just as I was your father's advisor in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's advice." So remember, Ahithophel is Bathsheba's granddad. And so he is advising Absalom. He's picked Absalom, which you can kind of understand. And now David has this man, and this is what we were talking about last week, about lying and all that. But Hushai is now sent by David to kind of give bad advice. That's his job. Hushai is to go see what's going on, report back to David through the priests, and he's basically going to take the advice and try and, it's like having an inside man. It's like being on the enemy's tactical meeting and giving bum advice, and that's what they're trying to do. This is all kind of concocted on the spot. He says to him, "You can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's advice." Verse 35, "Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, are here. Tell them the plans that are being made to capture me, and they'll send their sons, Ahimaaz and Jonathan, to find me and tell me what's going on." So the priests are to understand what's going on, and they'll send their sons to tell David exactly what's going on. So before cell phones and that, this is how they figured things out. David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom arrived. So the story, David's on the run, Absalom is trying to become king. They've got people, and basically the decision really is, whose side are you going to go on? That's the decision that people have to make. Are you going to go with David, or are you going to go with Absalom? People who don't like things under David might try and get to Absalom. The problem with going with Absalom is you're going against the Lord. Like, nowhere did God say or desire that Absalom would be king. So when you start trying to make Absalom king, it's not that you're just coming against David. You're coming against the Lord. Remember, ways back in chapter 9 of 2 Samuel, we meet Mephibosheth, who was lame, and David was really good to him. Remember, he was the family of Saul, and David wanted to do something. And you have this weird interchange now. Ziba was meant to be the man who looked after Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth never came with David. When David's on the run, Mephibosheth is missing. Ziba, who is meant to be the one looking after Mephibosheth, now meets David. Look at chapter 16, verse 1. David was just past the top of the hill when Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, caught up with him. He was leading 2 donkeys loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 bunches of summer fruit, and a skin of wine. That's a lot of stuff. "What are these for?" the king asked Ziba. And Ziba replied, "The donkeys are for your people to ride on. The bread and summer fruit are for the young men to eat. The wine is to be taken with you into the wilderness for those who have become faint." And so Ziba shows up. And on the front end of this, it seems like Ziba's doing a really good thing, right? You know, people's actions sometimes aren't exactly what they seem to be. And Ziba comes, the man who has been left in charge of Mephibosheth, is now come. He's found David. He's given him all this stuff. And David asks him, "Who are these for? What is this for?" And he says, "Well, they're for you. They're for your people. Anyone who's faint, you can eat that. The wine's to be taken with you into the wilderness for those who have become faint." And then David asks, because David has been really good to Mephibosheth. David has loved Mephibosheth. Remember, he was the one that got to be at the king's table. Remember, before he was lame, he was out in Lodabar. God's rescued Mephibosheth through David. David has been really, really kind and gracious to Mephibosheth. Remember, Mephibosheth could be dead. Because what they did back in the day, if you became king, and obviously not of your family, Saul and David weren't in the same family. Because David became king, what they used to do is kill everyone in the other person's family so that they would never have a chance to come at them. In other words, obviously if you're your son is the next king, you don't do that. But because you have your different families, what they would do is cut off that family so they would never come after the throne. Does that make sense? So if you had a family member and they were king and now they're no longer king, your family might try and come after the kingship, so they would get rid of them. David could have killed Mephibosheth. He's been really kind to him, really good to him, and Mephibosheth owes David a lot. And David, I think, look, it's funny because Ziba brings all this food, all this stuff, and what's the first question, or after who's this for? What's the next question in verse 3 that David asks? Where's Mephibosheth? David, I think, is hurt that Mephibosheth didn't come with him. Like, after all that Mephibosheth has done, where is he? Like, surely, the biggest fear David has is surely he's not on the other side. Sometimes it gets like that. You ever had a friend and you wonder what side they're on? So we've been there, right? We kind of understand this. Where is Mephibosheth? This one who he's given really grace and grace and grace to. And David asked in verse 3, where is Mephibosheth? The king asked him. And now Ziba says, he stayed in Jerusalem. Today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. Ziba says, oh, that guy? And look, there was always going to be a bit of rivalry because Ziba had to serve Mephibosheth. Ziba had to do everything for Mephibosheth. Remember at the time, I told you in chapter 9, when the deal was being made, that Ziba wasn't going to be too delighted with everything. You don't have to turn there, but in 2 Samuel chapter 9 and verse 9, David summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. Mephibosheth had received everything that belonged to Saul and his family. Ziba probably doesn't like that very much. So he meets David, and David says, where's Mephibosheth? And the king, and Ziba says, oh, he stayed in Jerusalem. And then he makes this statement, today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. If that's true, that's really, really bad. If Mephibosheth is now going behind David's back and trying to get the kingdom off of him, that would be horrendous. We're going to run into this again in a few chapters. I think Ziba's lying, and I'll show you why later on. Ziba's making this whole thing up. And it says, oh, today I'll get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. Why would Ziba do something like that? Why would Ziba do something like that? Maybe he thinks if Mephibosheth gets, well, you'll see it in a minute. You'll see exactly why he does it. The thinking is, if he doesn't bless Mephibosheth anymore, guess what? I'll get it. Here's another case of people trying to manipulate stuff. They can't manipulate God making Absalom king. You can't manipulate God's discipline. You can't manipulate God's blessings. People are always trying to do all of these things, and God is going to do whatever he wants to do. You know that, right? So if God's going to discipline, you can't stop it. If God's going to bless somebody else, how bad is that, by the way? When you look at someone, see how richly God has blessed them and think, I want that for myself. The stupidity of that is that God sees and knows. And David is this, I told you, David's this fascinating character. He's on the run. He's got all this stuff. He says, he hears Ziba, today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. And all of a sudden, David makes a rash decision. You ever been there? He hears a story. Here's the thing. If someone tells you a story, you might want to check what? Now, there's kind of three sides, they say. Your side, their side, and actually fully what happened, right? But that's a mistake we make. I'll tell you, I think that's one of the most frustrating and hurtful things. Is not when normally when people say something about you, you already know where they're at. That's not really that hurtful because by that point, it's that people believe what they're saying. Does that make sense? So if someone says, Kalida stole $500 from the offering box, and everyone's like, that probably says something about Kalida that, right? I mean, if we're not surprised by it, shouldn't we at least be like, hopefully you're like, no, she's better than that. 300 was her limit. No, just. But you see, I mean, how hurtful would it be? It's not the crazy that accuses her, because they already probably have this history. It's the people, the friends that say, imagine if Cliff goes home and says, why did you steal that? Well, that's going to lead to an interesting evening. You should know me what? Yeah. And David says, in that case, the king told Ziba, I give you everything Mephibosheth owns. Ziba at this moment must think, listen, whenever you do things like this, whenever you lie, cheat, and steal, you never win. You'll find out in a little bit that David gets himself in a mess and doesn't really know who to believe. And there's conjecture about who's right and wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ziba is. I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather. That's what listen, I told you on Sunday that when people accuse other people of something, it's because that's the way they're thinking. What is on the mind of Ziba? He wants the kingdom of his grandfather, of Saul back. And so he concocts this plan, and it's so kind of, you can see I don't know what the word is, just the putridness of, here's all these goodies. You know when people give you stuff, you might want to figure out why they're giving you stuff. Exactly. Sometimes it is because they're just that nice. Other times, when someone that doesn't like you all of a sudden is nice to you, mm-hmm. So the king told Ziba, I give you everything Mephibosheth owns. Thank you, sir, Ziba replied. I'll always do whatever you want me to do. Oh. And now there's this wild moment. David, I told you, he's made a rash decision there. He's made a quick rash, and that's a kind of a reminder to us tonight to not make rash decisions. How many of you made a rash decision and thought, probably should have thought that through? All of us, right? There's a reason, and I'm the biggest sucker. There's a reason Kroger puts certain things by the aisle when you're waiting. You're the reason. Yeah. I mean, I'm half of the reason, yes. Oh, chocolate candy that I didn't know I wanted, but it's on sale right here. I'm doing nothing else. I might as well grab it, right? Ask Tasha. She gives me a list. I always get the list. I just happen to get, yeah. But it was it was right there. But that's why they do it, because it's impulsive, right? eBay, Amazon. How many times you click that thing and be like, You have other problems. Look at verse 5. And this is, remember, David is he's leaving, he's got out of town. Look at what it says. As David and his party, remember that's Ittai and the Philistines, all of these different people, passed Barim, a man came out of the village cursing them. This man came out. You talk about the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. David is now getting attacked. And he's getting attacked verbally. Him and his men, it's almost like David would be walking. He'd have men surrounding him, right? And the devil never changes his game plan. Lots of times the devil comes at you and uses people just to say something stupid. Just to say something. This man, this Shimei, or whatever it is, I would just wish they had normal names like Tommy or, just give me an easy name. But Shimei or whatever his name is this really weird. He ends up getting killed by Solomon. He's just one of these guys. You ever met someone that you give chance after chance after chance to? We'll learn about this character, and then all of a sudden, he just can't be trusted. David promises not to kill him, but Solomon never made that promise. Anyway, we'll find that out later. But David is now on the run. And this moment comes, and this man starts yelling and screaming. And look at what it says. It was Shimei, son of Gera, a member of Saul's family. That's probably why they took people's family out. Because here's Saul's family member coming after. Why is this man mad? Hold on. Why is this man mad? His family lost the king. But whose fault is that? Yes, it's Saul's fault. And who made that decision? God did. So when you start complaining and whining about this, you are complaining about what God did. Like Saul's family needs to be thankful they're still alive and just live their life. Follow the Lord, follow David, do what you... People aren't that gracious, though, are they? It's bitterness, it's jealousy, it's all of this stuff. And this man, a member of Saul's family, who again is basically graciously living, listen to this in verse 6. He threw stones at the king. Okay, if you're the king, let's be honest a minute. David has some problems. He had lust. Murder came in, and he has all these issues going on. It's not the best moments of his life. He's on the run from his own son. He's got all this stuff going on. If you were the king and someone lobbed a stone at you, and it's one, there's one man there against all of you, what would you do? Let's be honest. What would you do? It's one dude against your whole army, running his mouth, and then chunking stones at you. You see this is what's wild about that. David, and it's us, David in moments could not control his inner man. You've read enough stories to know that David had problems with his emotions, with his inner man, with just reacting. In this moment, David is brilliant. He doesn't come after him. We'll see it. I mean, the amount of patience and goodwill that David has here is off the chart. This is one of David's godly moments. This is one of those amazing... I mean, it's the same David. Remember when twice he could have killed Saul? Remember that David? When he found him in the cave and when he found him sleeping, David could have killed him, remember? And the guys are like, God's put him in there, kill him, kill him, kill him. And David was like, I'm not touching the Lord's anointed. You see what all these other characters are doing, Ziba and Shimei and all of this? They're trying to manipulate the situation. And David, I think David is struggling with one thing. David realizes how much he's messed things up. With Bathsheba, with Uriah, with his own son, with all of these different situations. And I think now he's actually cognitive of the fact God's already told him all of this trouble is going to come. And I think he accepts now that some things are going to happen to me because of what I've done. Now this guy's coming after him for taking the kingdom, which was God's choice, God's call. But David, I think, sees every hardship now as I deserve that because of the way I've been. Does that make sense? So if you think that, you're more accepting of what comes against you. In other words, sometimes we think because we're God's and because we're his kid, we deserve an easy, free ride and nothing bad can happen to us. If you've been kind of off in left field and rough things start to happen, at some point you have to accept, well, I've kind of brought this on myself, right? David, it says he threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded them. That takes some guts. Yeah. He's a bit mental. Well, he's not a bit mental. We'll show you that later. Look at what it says, though. He threw stones at the king, the king's officers, and all the mighty warriors who surrounded them. That's weird, because David is the giant slayer, right? So taking on you, please. But I think everybody sees the kindness and the graciousness of David too. And what's weird is, if you're one of those people who are very kind and very gracious, people tend to what? Yeah, they take advantage of you. Or they think he's not going to... Look what happens. They're throwing stones out of here. At David, he is. In verse 7, he says, get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel. Oh, man, now, you see that? People know what to say, don't they? Remember that sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never. That's a load of nonsense. And this guy's got all of it. He is doing sticks, stones, words. He's doing the whole gamut. But look, you have to be secure in the Lord. You have to be secure that you're his, and you have to own your mistakes. Was David a murderer? Had he earned that title? Yes. Yeah. So we make, but you see what, this is classic the devil. What does the devil do? He reminds you of your past. He reminds you of your worst moments, and he wants you to get focused on that. You see, actually, yes, I am a murderer, but me being king is the grace of God. You see, when Shammai says you murderer, yeah, that's true. I am a murderer. But look what God can do. Look what God... And really the truth is he's just jealous for Saul. That's his problem. He's not even really mad at David. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel. He shouted at David. And he's yelling at the king. Verse 8. The Lord... It's amazing how unspiritual people love to throw the word of the Lord around and what he's thinking. Right. When people are out in left field, they love to tell you about what the Lord is who he is or what he's doing. Shammai has no idea, he is not a godly person. And he looks at David and he says, the Lord is paying you back for murdering Saul and his family. Well, hold on. Saul died on his own sword. David didn't kill Saul. This is all nonsense. Murdering Saul and his family. Hold on. David did not kill Saul and his family. Basically, Saul died because he lied and God said, your kingdom's what? Who really killed Saul? God did. You can read, we've read the story. You can read about him getting attacked and him falling on his sword and asking his armor bearer, just kill me before they get me. The point is that God did that. And what you'll find in your life is people will be mad at you for something that you didn't do, that God did. And they're almost upset that God blessed you in that way. Well, what do you want me to do about that? And so he says, the Lord is paying you back for murdering Saul and his family. Well, that doesn't make sense anyway. So the Lord, in paying back Saul, in paying back David, made him king. When people say stuff, you just need to stop and ask for wisdom. You stole his throne, that's a lie. And now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. That's a lie. Listen, you have to understand who God is and what he's doing. And by the way, this is one of the most awkward things in Christianity today. Is it true that the Lord speaks? Yes. Does God speak through his word? 100%. Can God, by the Holy Spirit, not verbally speak to you, but speak to you? Yes. But do you know what church, not this church, just Christianity, you know what we've done? We do the same thing. In order to get our way, we tack on those words. The Lord has told me. And without thinking about it, without trying to work through it, people just be like, oh, well. It's like, I stole the offering, but the Lord told me to. Oh, okay then. I don't know what my deal with stealing offering is tonight, but stop doing that, Kalida. But look, it's true the Lord tells you stuff, but people watch out because people will manipulate that. Or the Lord told me. Like, for instance, if someone comes up at 10:51 and says, the Lord's told me to preach today, that's really, there's going to have to be an angel telling me that I ain't giving it up that easy. But it's really scary to say that. I don't even like there's times where I want to say that, and I'm kind of even leery of saying that because it's kind of a tool people use to manipulate things. David, you have to understand where you're at, who God is, all of that stuff. And he says, you stole his throne. You ever been accused of something that you know is a lie? Why does the devil bring someone to tell you, to say a lie that you know is 100% a lie? Sometimes people accuse you of stuff and you have to step back and say, is that true? Listen, sometimes when people come and say something, nobody ever wants to hear something like that, right? But sometimes you have to step back and say, well, that's partially true. Actually, you got somewhat. David did not steal the throne. There's no and that's just not true at all. So why does the devil say stuff like that? Think about it. This is what's even more amazing. When someone lies straight to your face, how much of Jesus do you have in you? Honestly. If someone lies about you or your family to your face or around you, you're always like, well, hallelujah, this is my point to show you grace. Do you want to go to dinner? You know you want to slap them. And it's so many times, there's so many times I want to say something back, and the Lord's like, just shut up. Oh, man, I had a zinger too. I thought it was funny. They wouldn't. But look, this guy is just lying. And he does. I told you on Sunday, this is what the devil does. He when you stand for God, when you're something of God, like of God's man, the devil comes to mischaracterize everything. Your intentions, your character, your church, everything. The devil just wants to slam you with all these mischaracterizations so that you either flip out and lose it or you just get defeated and discouraged. It's not easy to hear a lie about you, is it? And here, you know what? What is the normal reaction when someone lies about you? You want to stick up for what? Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether sometimes that's the right move. But lots of times you have to step back and just what? Let the Lord what?
Pray about it.
Oh, man. And when you let the Lord take care of it, he will take care of it. But, man, it's hard to walk away and shut your mouth. This guy is being used by the devil. He says, you stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. If you're weak, if you're not strong, you might think, if you go home and like, did the Lord give it to Absalom? Because if the Lord's given it to Absalom, that changes everything. But he hasn't. At last you will taste some of your own medicine, you murderer. Well, that's a nice thing to say. I mean, that's not exactly full of the Spirit of God, is it? You are getting a taste of your own medicine, you murderer. Abishai, who is the son of David's sister, why should this dead dog, listen to this, Abishai has kind of a regular reaction. He looks at David and he's like, hey, why is this dead dog cursing my lord the king? Let me go over and what? What does he say? Abishai stands up and he says, oh, dead dog over here, why is he can't talk to you like that. Cut his head off. I'm going to go and cut his head. Now, again, what's the temptation for David? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Let's just walk on. Why? Oh, don't worry. What's Abishai doing? Don't worry about that. Let's just keep moving. Ah! See, even that is a trap. When people... I know you've had this. Someone's done you wrong. And in friendship, loyalty, whatever you want to call it, someone on your behalf wants to try and help you, but they want to help you in the wrong way. And the temptation is, like, well, I'll go and get them. Well, hold on. If you go and get them, we're upset because they got us. If we go and get them, now we're what? We're just as bad. The temptation is, oh, they sent you that? Well, let me send them. No, hold on. And David, look at what David says. So again, David has this moment where, man, David could get rid of this guy as quick as look at him. There's only one person coming against him in this moment. Verse 10, no, the king said, what am I going to do with you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord has told him to curse me, who am I to stop him? This is an amazing moment. David says, maybe the Lord sent him to do this. Maybe it's okay. Like, if the Lord wants it to stop, guess what? It'll stop. He says, maybe the Lord sent him. And if the Lord sent him to do whatever, to prove me, to test me, he looks at Shimei and he understands that God's going to deal with it. Abishai wanted to take things into his own hands. And David says to him, no. And he gets flustered with who? He gets flustered with Abishai. If the Lord has told him to curse me, who am I to stop him? That's amazing. Like, think about that for a second. You ever been in uncomfortable situations? Hard circumstances? Things you don't like? Things you don't understand? What's our first reaction? Lord, get me. David looks at it and says, if this is you, Lord, that's fine. I'll take it. And this is part of whatever, the trading, being your man, all of that stuff. It's fine. I'll take it. I could take revenge, but I won't. What would happen if we looked at our life situations and thought that? Like, if we got financially strapped instead of like going mental about it, how about if we like, maybe this is the Lord letting me get here for a reason. Like, I'm going to be, I don't mean that you sit there and just do nothing. I'm just saying, like, it's a totally different perspective, isn't it? Because if you only see that the devil sent him, then you'll get, but David steps back and he's like, if the Lord is doing this, because what David understands is, if the Lord wanted to stop this, he would have what? He could have stopped it, right? He says to him, who am I to stop him? And David said to Abishai and the other officers, my own son is trying to kill me. See, here's this kind of weird moment that David's in. He looked, and this is kind of like one of those really lucid moments in a really messed up situation. He looks at Shimei and he kind of understands. The guy that's throwing rocks at you, calling you a murderer, lying straight to your face, how many of us really step back and try to understand why they're being how they are? Here's the truth. Here's what you've got to figure out in your life, whether it's family, church, work, whatever you want to make it. When people are being like this, when people are acting out, when they're throwing stuff, when they're having a tantrum, when they're lying, when they're... This is part of what he's upset about. But it's not really the truth, is it? Like, it's Shimei's problem is bitterness, anger. All his inner man is so messed up that on the outside, all of this is coming out. What I'm saying is this, two things. One, when people come against you, if you can, step back and try and figure out where they're at in life. I.e., if someone has been going through a rough spot, maybe you can step back and say, hey, look, they're just acting out because of this. Does that make sense? When I started to understand, like at first you just want to get mad, right? But when you step back a minute and you start to think, okay, why are they being like that? Sometimes you can kind of step back and be like, you know what? I'm not as mad as I would be. I'm okay because, I mean, if someone has been, you know, what example can I use? If someone has been at the hospital for 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks and been it's really bad, you walk in the room and they're kind of rude to you. Well, right. You would say, well, all right. It's their circumstance. But we tend not to do that, right? David is this amazing character in this moment. He says to him, my own son's trying to kill me. He's like, guys, hold on. My own kid is trying to kill me. Shouldn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Like, if my son is trying to kill me, why are we surprised that he wants me dead? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. I don't really understand that. I don't know if that's true or not. But David is kind of semi-convinced that the Lord has brought this situation. Now, whether the Lord told Shimei to do this, but David tells them, my own son wants me dead. I don't know why we're surprised that Saul's relative. I mean, if my own son wants me dead, then anybody's going to want me dead. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. This is David. I could get him. Abishai, everybody, leave him alone. You have to trust me on this. You have to trust God. And perhaps the Lord will listen to what he says. And perhaps the Lord will see that I'm being wronged and will bless me because of these curses. This is kind of weird. First of all, he says, for the Lord has told him to do it, but then he wants to... I don't fully understand what's going on here. But David looks at his men and says, I'm being wronged, and maybe God will bless me because of these curses. That's the other way that you survive stuff like this. When people come at you, when you react, when you do what they're doing, you kind of lose what? You lose the blessing of God. But I'm telling you, when you trust the Lord and you don't react and you let him handle you, you'll be blessed. Like, that's not easy to do. The situations probably you do need to respond in. That's kind of a hard line to decipher. But there's been times in my ministry, I've wanted to say something, I've wanted to do something, and the Lord's just like, just let it be. Like, okay. And you know, every single time God works it out. Every single time. It's not easy to do. And he says, perhaps the Lord will bless me. Like, I'm being wrong, but if I stay and by the way, David already knows what his flesh is like. And last time he listened to his flesh and started sleeping with women and killing people, it didn't end so good. So maybe he's learning my flesh is... So David and his men continued on. And what does it say? Shimei kept with them on a nearby hillside, cursing as he went and throwing stones at David and tossing dust into the air. This guy just doesn't stop. And that's the devil's ammo too, by the way. If you calm the first time, he'll just throw what? He'll just throw it again and again. It's like, I can be patient to what? I mean, let him go. It's fine. Shimei, move on. And it says, the Bible says he kept pace with them. In other words, everywhere David went, what? There he was. Yeah. It's like a dog, but not your dog, someone else's dog. Like, what? Cursing as he went and throwing stones at David and tossing dust into the air. You can see it from the devil's perspective, but what do you think God is teaching them all through this? You got to trust, like, patience, right? I mean, if nothing else, God is teaching David and his men patience. Imagine, like, don't touch him, he's fine. And then he keeps up with you and he's tossing dirt in the air and he's cursing and he's yelling and he's screaming. It's like, man. That just take him out. No, bad Frank. Man, this is a challenge for all of them. The king and all who were with him grew weary along the way. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, they're all growing weary. So they rested when they reached the Jordan River. Was kind of I wonder if he rested with them. Like, yeah, whilst they were sleeping, yucking stones at them. When it says they were weary, you can understand that, right? Emotionally, physically, spiritually. They've been given stuff from Zebah. By the way, even though Zebah, I think, is lying, God's provided them with all that stuff. In the middle of the wilderness, God's hand is right there with David. Like, regardless what Zebah's intentions are, David has just got a whole bunch of stuff for his people. And that's the way God does it. Quickly, and we'll pray. Verse 15. Meanwhile, Absalom and his men arrived at Jerusalem, accompanied by Ahithophel. When David's friend Hushai, remember the spy now, the Archite arrived, he went immediately to see Absalom. And see, this is where it gets kind of rough. This is where it gets hazy. David has sent his man, and his man goes in and basically lies. Yeah. That's what I'm telling you. I don't like some of this. I wouldn't like some of this procedure. He says, and by the way, see, there's a reason people compliment you sometimes. There's a reason that people choose their words sometimes. And if it seems kind of weird, or it really hits your flesh, maybe there's a reason. Think about this. Who is Hushai working for? David. What's the last thing Hushai wants? Absalom to be king. What would Hushai never agree to? Absalom being king. But he sneaks in, he sees Absalom, and what's the first word he says? Yeah, long. That is so obnoxious. It is so bad. He's just lying. He's making himself to be something. Yes, that was good. If we ever have a drama team, we'll have you up there. Yeah, but you can't. I get that, but you think the Lord tells him to do that? I mean, that's what I'm getting at. I get it, and that's the hardness of it. You're right. This is war. This is what that. I'm not getting down that road again. But even in war, is it okay to lie or not? That's where you have to. I get it, Dwayne. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with that. In war, and long live the king, he exclaimed, long live the king.
But it just sounds like he's trying to say.
Oh, he is. He's trying to get his way in. Listen, what's funny is Absalom is kind of leery of Hushai. So Hushai has to come in and act a certain way, right? He has to get the favor of the king. Everybody else kind of knows he's up to something. So he has to come in and he says, long live the king. That's a lie. That in itself is not true. That's not his heart at all. It's the exact opposite. Is this the way you treat your friend David? Absalom asked him. See, Absalom, no. You ever know something and you go back and say, I knew it at the time? Absalom, deep down in the embers of his being, knows it's weird that David's friend is now, long live the king. Look at what he says. Is this the way you treat your friend David? Why aren't you with him? That's Absalom's first question. Remember, there's two sides now. You're either on David's side or you're on Absalom's side. And when David's friends come your way, there's two things they're doing. One is they've started to hate David and they're ready to flip, or they're doing what he's doing and infiltrating the camp. And Absalom says, why are you here? You're David's friends. In other words, if they were sitting down, like politicians, they figure out who's voting which way. There's no way that Hushai is voting for Absalom. They know he's David's friend. I'm here because I work for the man who is chosen by the Lord and by Israel. Oh, this is
That was being vague.
this is really bad. Look at what he says. I'm here because I work for the man who is chosen by the Lord and by Israel, Hushai replied. And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? I helped your father, and now I will help you. What he says in verse 18 is, he claims that now Absalom is what? Is God's man, and he's coming to work for Absalom. He says, I work for the man who is chosen by the Lord and by Israel. And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? I helped your father, and now I'll help you. That's just a lie. That's a total lie. He's not here to help. He's here to do the exact opposite. He says, I work for the man chosen by the Lord and by Israel, which is, man, this is rough. And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? I helped your father, and now I will help you. And Absalom, and we'll finish this. This is wild. Remember what God told David? David, the sword will never leave your house. Part of his problems. And God had told David, what you did in private will happen in public. David had been promised by God that your wives will sleep with a man in public. He's told them that. God promised them that. Look at what happens. Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, what should I do next? Absalom needs help. He doesn't know what to do. It's all of this stuff going on. And Ahithophel tells him, go and sleep with your father's concubines. Awesome. Now remember last time he leaves 10 at the palace. Not a great move. I don't know why he leaves 10 there, but he leaves 10 concubines at the palace. And it's not just sex stuff, like sex they have with them. They serve them, they help them. It's not just purely a physical thing. Concubines are more than that. So he takes everybody and leaves the concubines. You figure that out. But in leaving the concubines in the palace by themselves, he's left them wide open for what? For this kind of mess. And so they want to one-up David. They want to come against David. And so now Ahithophel, Bathsheba's granddad, says, go and sleep with your father's concubines. And by the way, that was a big no-no. And by the way, now think about how frayed the relationship between Absalom and David is now. But now Absalom is going to go and sleep with his father's concubines. Now, as much as they messed up the rules on like intimacy and stuff, that was a big no-no. And so look what happens. For he has left them here to keep his house. Then all Israel will know that you have insulted him beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will give you their support. This is a wild plan. You know not all plans are from the Lord, right? Look at what he says. When all Israel sees this and knows this, that you have insulted him beyond hope of reconciliation, they will give you their support. Think about what he's trying to do in that. Whilst people think that there's a chance of reconciliation, they may not really want Absalom in. But when they realize that Absalom and David are not getting back together, like some people wouldn't go with Absalom in case there's a chance that they reunite. Does that make sense? When you're sleeping with your father's concubines out in the middle of broad daylight, guess what? Reconciliation. And there's also that, do you see how it looks? Who to the physical naked eye does it look like winning? When Absalom goes and takes over the palace, takes the 10 concubines, and starts sleeping with them out in the middle of broad daylight, who does it look like is winning? Yeah, and so the weak people, the people whoever's winning, I'll jump on it, now they're going to support who? Which makes you wonder, what made you support Absalom? It was when he slept with David's concubines. Well, that's...
Sounds like politics today.
It's politics 101, yeah. And they will give you their support. So they listen to this. But remember, the Lord had seen this. He told them, this is what happened. When you mess around in sin, you have no idea the consequences. They set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone could see it. Okay, hold on. You don't have to be really smart to know that this isn't like, look, God's promised it because he sees everything. He knows what's coming. But this is not a plan of the Lord, is it? This is not inspired by the Holy Spirit. Who do you think inspires this plan? Yeah. There's a tent on the roof now where everyone could see it. And Absalom went into the tent to sleep with his father's concubines. I don't know if he sleeps with all 10 of them or what, but this is bonkers. He goes into the tent, he sleeps with his concubines, and Absalom follows Ahithophel's advice just as David had done. For every word Ahithophel spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of God. But this is amazing. So Ahithophel, I believe, had been a really, a strong advocate for David, and he was a good, sounding board, and I believe he was wise, and I believe he helped. It's Bathsheba's granddad, though, and when he got turned, he got messed up, he got turned, and what God is going to do, see, Ahithophel is the smart guy. He's the wise guy, right? Every word spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of God. And so Absalom is going to try and follow him. Absalom, he's just listened to him. But by the way, Ahithophel has just given himself up. You know what didn't come directly from the mouth of God? Go sleep with your father's concubines in the tent. Ahithophel has already shown where he's at now. He used to be a good advisor. But now, and God's going to come in and he's going to use all of this, and we'll see what happens. I don't know why when people make videos of the Bible, they have to embellish anything. Just do what, yeah, there's plenty of drama and messed up stuff. Yeah, it's enough of a soap opera, yeah. Yeah, and we'll see next week how this all comes. But see, he had followed David. He had given David advice. But the moment he jumped ship, he turned away from David, and now he starts doing all this stuff. And God's going to do some amazing things. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts?